Welcome to the Dr. Donna podcast, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 107, Aging, Part 2. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
I'm Dr. Donna. Welcome to my podcast. And I've been talking about life on life's terms. And, I left off last week talking about aging. That's definitely life on life's terms. There's no way around it. Even if you, say, aren't around when you're 21, you've still aged. It happens to everyone. And last time, I was talking about how you feel this sense of importance in the world. I was young. When I got my master's degree, I was 24 years old. And I was farmer and rancher. Okay, that's what I was born and raised doing, farming and ranching. And so I would look at other people doing what they did, figure out what I was going to do now that I wasn't doing those things I was born and raised to do. To be a farmer's wife, to be a rancher's wife, to, take care of a guy that would supposedly take care of me, and those agreements, but I saw that those agreements always didn't work out, and the losers were usually women. So anyway, that's another day, another story. But I thought, how do you do that? So what did I do? I went and got a briefcase. Because in my world, you either had a lunchbox or a briefcase. And when I was in school, so I didn't have a lunch box per se, but I had a lunch bag. And I would take my lunch with me wherever I went. I still do that. I do it more now than I did before. But so I went and bought a briefcase. And I thought, well, what do I put in this briefcase? Because I want to be important in the world. And being my size and being female, and, even though I was in a, what was considered a largely female profession, which wasn't true at all. It's just that the workers were female. The administrators were male. They were the ones telling us what to do and how to do it. So I thought, well, I'm just going to be important here. So I bought this briefcase and I didn't even know what to put in it. So I had a date book. I put that in it. I had a notebook. I put that in it, but it's like, I didn't know what else to put in this. But so I carried basically a empty briefcase around for a while. And I decided after a few years, not only is this useful to me, it's kind of a problem because I like riding my bike to work. Try doing that with a briefcase. Or, I don't have anything in to put it. So now I just have to worry about somebody ripping it off because this is a nice one. So finally, after many years, because I stopped using it, but it was a nice briefcase. And I thought, well, maybe at some point I'll have enough things to put in this briefcase that will but the main thing was that I thought, well, that's what you do when you look important. And, I struggled with people taking me seriously anyway because of my size and because I'm female. But now I think about it and it's like, over time, how I did that was irrelevant. Because over time, when I would go to an office, I had a backpack. That felt more normal to me. And that I put my date book and my lunch and whatever else I needed in that backpack. And I went to work carrying a backpack at 5 o'clock in the morning because I like to get a good walk in before I ended up at work. And, I didn't even really need to take the backpack, but I did need my date book, and going a few miles walking with the date book was a problem. So it went in my backpack. And even that went along with who I was as a therapist and my backpack. Now, I talked to, again, it's a physician friend of mine, and she said one of the things that made her always feel important was the white coat. Doctors wear this white coat. And when she stopped being a doctor, it was like, so I didn't have my white coat anymore. And, wearing scrubs just didn't seem to cut it because everybody knows I'm not going to surgery. I'm old. Okay. So, that sense of like being part of a big thing that you are involved in, it goes away. And when it does, you feel a sense of loss. I said before, aging is all about loss. Okay. And I had a friend that talked about, you lose your sense of hearing, you lose your sense, you lose your eyesight, you lose, your voice sometimes, you lose your agility. And, I'm one of those people that works really hard, and all of my friends, they work really hard at trying to keep what they have. But when you're aging, and if you're aware of it, you can tell that things that you lose. And I asked my friend who's a doctor, I said, why don't they write a book? There's a book about every darn thing. There are really no good books about aging and what to expect. It's like, there's 1,000 books about what to expect when you're expecting, what to expect in the baby's first year, what to expect when they go off to school. There's all kinds of books about what to expect when you're aging. It might not be a bestseller because everybody's excited about it, but it would help because you don't know what to expect. I'm telling you some of what I know, and this is from talking to other people and going through it myself. One of the things that people tell me people who are aging, and they're actually in their elderly years, not going to work all the time, not raising children. One of the things that happens, and everybody that I've talked to has told me this, they start to think they're invisible. They feel invisible. Now, I used to think that when, say, you were female, that we felt invisible. This was a thing that I used to talk about when I was young. It's like, geez, it's like you just feel invisible because no one really listens to you. Nobody cares what you have to say, unless you're beautiful. And then they don't really see you. They just see the beauty, right? And I had one of my colleagues from Australia actually wrote a couple of books about women's issues back then. And she said, you're not invisible. You're just not observable. You're not invisible. You are actually there, but you're not observed. Okay. So I'm not going to talk about that, but it feels like you're invisible, and others might think that you just don't matter. And that's why you feel invisible. Like as a human being, you don't matter. I noticed the first time that this ever happened to me, I didn't even know what it meant. But I was probably maybe about 65. I worked full time until I was 70. And I was probably about 65 when this happened. But like I said before, I used to walk to work, and I'd walk very early in the morning with my backpack. And of course, I'd take my backpack home. So I was taking my backpack when I went up a hill, because I lived way up on a hill. So I was going to go across the street with the light, and some person just started turning right and almost took me out. And they yelled out, "I didn't see you." Okay, so here is a woman who has a red jacket on a black backpack, okay, how do you not see this person? And I thought, wow, that is really curious. And then almost a week later, I was halfway across the street and somebody almost clipped me. I had to jump out of the way. And I thought, what is going on here? And when I talked to some of my friends, I said, oh yeah, it's called being invisible. Once you get to a certain age, people don't see you anymore. And it's that loss of importance of being a human being. And so that feeling of being invisible doesn't feel good. You know, I've had it happen on trails. And I'm on trails a lot. In the summertime, there are mountain bikers on some of the trails I go on. And I'll tell you what, invisible. I know, even though there are signs everywhere when you go on these multi-use trails. It's like it has people on foot have the right of way. Bikers are supposed to stop and move for people on foot. Let's see, in 3 years of hiking probably 4 or 5 times a week at least, that's happened twice. That somebody actually got off their bike and moved out of the way for me to pass. When they got off their bike and moved out of the way, I thought, uh-oh, we're going to have a confrontation of some sort. Like, it never occurred to me that they were doing what the rules asked them to do. Now, I don't know if that's part of being old or if it's female or if it's just being rude, but it's dangerous. Because here's another fact of aging. You just don't move as fast as you used to. And so if someone's coming whipping around a bend and you happen to be standing there, getting out of the way is harder than it used to be. That's just a fact. Jumping out of the way of a car probably isn't going to work out so well. You can't move like you used to. And, you know, I'm a person that takes really good care of my body because I know it's my only source of transportation. I've always known that. And so I take at least as good care of my body as I do my car, okay? Or my bike. Anything that is a transportation, I take really good care of, and my body's number one. And so, you know, I'm 72. I eat right. I get the right amount of sleep. I exercise. And I do more than, you know, hiking. I do upper body exercise too, so that I can engage my core to pick up my grandson. And even though I do all that, my body is still not like it was. I've always been athletic, so it's not something that I just picked up when I got aging. I've always been athletic. I've always moved my body. I've always, you know, liked moving more than not. And, you know, again, here's another reality about being female in my generation. Even though, you know, being a therapist was an automatic almost for me because of my abilities, I would never have chosen to do life's work sitting down 8 hours a day. With the only time I get to move during the day is on my way to work when I'm walking, on my way to work when I'm leaving, weekends, holidays, and between sessions. Okay? I never would have chosen this profession. I would have probably chosen something like forestry or, you know, I have a friend who actually started an adventure company. Even though she was female, she was probably the only female adventure company. She's a little younger than me, but not by much. And so she's been traveling and hiking and stuff all her life. That would have been me. It never occurred to me that I had any other options. Anyway, so, I have always moved. And even though I've always moved, oh, hey, I got that calf problem, that pulled calf muscle that I had. And I was told by my doctor that if I was younger, that probably wouldn't have happened. Because there are some things that happen to you as you age, physically. They don't tell you about it unless you're in a crisis. I learned that your body doesn't retain fluid. And some of that fluid is what makes, the muscles and tendons and everything work together. They can't do it without fluid. It kind of dries up and it becomes problematic. Who told me that? Nobody. My eyes get dry. Who told me that was just going to happen? Nobody. The things that I knew were things that I could see as a young person. Like, people would get bent over a little bit, a little crooked, might limp a little bit, probably have false teeth, things like this that I could see. But these things that happen, weren't something that I was told about. So being visible was big, and it still is. I can't believe it. I will go into a doctor's office, and I swear to God, they didn't hear or see me. They didn't hear a word I said or see me for who I was. That, I don't know. I haven't found a gerontologist, somebody who specializes in old people. So I don't have one of those. I have regular doctors that everybody goes to. And I swear to God, I have only met one time that spoke to me like I was a regular human being. Talked down to you. Kind of like you don't exist. And you've lost your mind and you're not very smart. And it's not fun. That part is not fun. Now, I know that other, in other periods of time, not ours, but in other periods of time, I would be viewed as a person with wisdom and an elder in the community with wisdom. And those same young people who look down on me, who talk down to me, would be coming to me, asking me things that they would know I've been through because I'm elderly, and they would ask my opinion and seek my opinion. And I guess this podcast is part of that. It wasn't something I thought, well, I think now that I am partially retired, I think I'll do a podcast. That did not happen to me. It was requested of me, and I felt honored by that because, somebody thought that I had something to say. But, I just wonder what would happen if people who were older, young people, go to them and say, I know you've been around. I know you've been through these things. Can you give me some guidance, some direction, some of your experience so that I don't have to reinvent the freaking wheel? But, everybody's got to reinvent the wheel their own way in our society. So that invisibility piece is really hard. It's hard to take, and it's a true story. It does happen. And I've heard this from more than me, how they just feel like they don't count anymore. And then there's, I said there's this loss, right? But part of the loss really is that you start to lose your hearing, you start to lose your eyesight. When I started losing my eyesight, I thought, what? It's like, is this the end? And found out I had cataracts. Like, oh, I thought that happened to old people. Oh, wait a minute. I guess I'm there. So fortunately, somebody figured out how to remove those. But you become injured more easily. Okay. So I have my best friend who I've known since I was 25. she tripped over a garbage can. And, this is what happens when you age. So she knew she was tripping. When you're young, you can maybe regain your balance because you can move fast. Remember I said you're not a fast mover? So, I've tripped before over stuff when I was younger. I didn't have a lot of scars. I didn't have any, I'm knocking on wood now, broken bones. But here she is, she's older than me, and she tripped over a garbage can and went flying and broke her hip. The broken hip problem for old people, right? And this is part of what happens, is that if you fall, you're more likely to become seriously injured. When you fall as a young person, you're more likely to bounce back. Unless you fall in a weird way. Okay? But if you just trip over something and fall, it might scare you. You might skin your knees, might skin your hand. But you're probably not going to end up in the hospital because you tripped over something. Now, if you're a football player and you tripped over someone's foot, you might end up in the hospital. But, most of us, when we're young, we don't think about, I better make sure that nothing's in the way, I better make sure that every rug in my house is stuck to the floor. If I have rugs, it's carpeting. It's not throw rugs. Throw rugs don't exist in old people's homes. And if they do, they won't for long, because those throw rugs will become a source of danger. You either step on it and fall, or you trip on it in the middle of the night. Okay? So these are realities that people who are aging go through. It's like when you get in the car, you have to really make sure you can see, in the rear view mirror, make sure your side. Now, everybody's supposed to do this, but I'll bet most people don't. Okay, my side mirrors are working, because your ability to stop is going to be less than it was 10 years ago. Your the time, what's the word I'm looking for here? And that happens too. Response time slows down. Okay. So if somebody runs out in front of you, your response time to be able to see it and then react to it by stopping becomes longer. Okay. So you got to do everything you can do to make sure that you are safe when you drive. Okay. So, and sometimes it can be frightening because other people are not thinking about this and they're driving as if they're fine, or they have, a faster response time, or because they do. But, these losses. So my friend with the broken hip, I don't know how she'll recover. She's motivated. She really wants to recover completely so she can walk. But she's more aged than me, and it's always a question about how well that recovery will be. And that's part of it. It's like you get injured when you're older, and your recovery might not be what you wished it would be or what it could have been. So you start to realize that, this body of mine, this primary source of transportation, isn't working as well. It's kind of working a little bit like, that 1953 pickup truck. And you can change that oil. You can do whatever you want to do, but it's still a 1953 pickup truck. And it doesn't run the way that this new one does. And it never will. I had talked a little bit about this, but feeling obsolete in your work, in your profession. I told one of the physicians who was treating me like I was an idiot one day, I said, you know that I have written a book. I have a podcast. I know what I'm doing. I really wish you wouldn't speak down to me. And, he looked at me like he didn't even know what I was talking about. And he goes, oh, that's nice. That's what, when you feel obsolete, it's like you feel like you're like that 1953 pickup truck that nobody's bothering to restore. It's just sitting in the barn. And that's what it feels like. Now, there's one more big issue, and I'm going to talk about that next time. I won't even tell you what it is. I've covered most of them that I know about because good luck finding anything to really read about it, or even, AARP you can get when you're 50. So that's not the same thing I'm talking about. And they have articles, but I sit there and go, yeah, that's not really real. So, but next time I'm going to start with probably one of the biggest issues about aging. See if you can guess what it is.
Thank you for listening to the Dr. Donna podcast here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Dr. Donna podcast is copyright 2023 Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.